I'm measuring either the front cover or the back cover, but let's focus on the front cover. It's worth noting that it's A4. You might have 17 by 24, 17 by 25, 14 by 20, depending on common book or magazine sizes. Alright, I'm using an A4 size here. So here's what I do. I make a line here from this point. Now, earlier in the video, we talked about how I made the back cover and aligned it with the same on the same line here on the same trim. As mentioned earlier, the number of pages is small, and I don't need to include a spine, which we'll talk about when we explain the second type of covers. So what sets the second type apart from the first one is the spine. I mentioned that the names differ from country to country, but here in Jordan, we call it the spine. So what I do is I press enter, then I type 21, which is the measurement of the front cover or the face of the cover, and I make a copy. Now here I have the first type that we talked about, but we don't want that one. We don't want the first type. We want the second type. The second type, the spine depends on the number of pages in the book. Meaning, for example, if my book has 200 pages, the spine will be about 1 centimeter, or the spine will be 8 millimeters. This calculation, or the exact measurement of the spine, you'll get in detail from the printing house. You need to request it from them. As a designer or someone working in pre-press, the owner of the printing house will specify the spine measurement for you based on the grammage of the paper. For example, the book might use a certain type of paper, let's say offset, glossy, or premium paper, so the thickness of the paper will vary from one type to another depending on the kind of paper used. But here, let's say we'll set the spine to 1 centimeter, okay? And here it's 0. Then I click OK, and I've shifted it by a distance of 1 centimeter. Alright, now let's talk about how I'm going to use the spine in the design process, or how it can help enhance my design. Because I'm going to use the same ready-made template I have here. Alright, just like this, I click, we mentioned, the arrow now group. Okay. And I click again, 22, because the spine I made was, just 1 centimeter. I move this here, just like we did with the first type. I can also reflect it for everyone. Alright, now to open the artboard earlier, since the cut was on both the front and back cover, the artboard size was A3. But now the artboard size will need to have 1 centimeter added, which is the spine width, so it will be 43 by 29.7. So you enter 43 here, and here you put 29.7. We click OK. Now I make a group here and make sure to set a line to our board. I do it this way, just like this. Now, to explain the spine part, we need to do it like the first type, which is create trim marks. I added registration marks for the cuts. And I can press enter here and do -21, then copy it to shift it so it moves to the left. And now I do -1 centimeter as well, which is the spine boundary, like this. Don't forget, set them to none. Don't delete them, just remove the outlines for the book's measurements by setting them to none. Alright, I'll go ahead and repeat that step one more time so it's clear. I press Command+R to bring up the guidelines, or the virtual lines, so that I can really more clearly see the cover boundaries or the cover details, so I can work, add bleed, and make a cut for it. Here I have. I press Command+Alt+ the letter B. To create a bleed, like we mentioned, you can set it to 0.5 centimeter or the same thing, because the topic of bleed is something I'll talk about more in the third type of design. I group it. Click here. And I click here as well. I create the bleed. We made the bleed 0.5 centimeter, which is very important. Alright, now let's talk about what I can put here or add here in the second type of book, which, as we mentioned, is distinguished by the spine. Can you put the name of the book? We put the name. The book was called History of Palestine. Okay, let's just use a nicer font than this, perhaps a little bit more elegant, just for visual and aesthetic reasons. Alright, I used this. The document is a bit slow because I used a lot of vector lines. You could convert it to a PSD image, but for speed, I had to leave it as it is. Now I just want to explain how I can add text. If you notice on books, on the spine in this area, you'll usually find the name of the publishing house or its logo. And here in the middle, it's usually the title of the book. This method is for people who read a lot of books, and hopefully will be among those people who read a lot of books. They usually have their own library at home or in a public place. And the book stands upright like this, so what's visible to the eye is the spine of the book, so you can identify the book. We put the book title in the center. Try to make it smaller and move it away from the arc. Yes, just like that. Perfect. The center, so it comes out right for me. I placed a guide and aligned the registers from the top. A fake leader took over. Alright, just like this. You can also add, as we mentioned, the publisher or whatever is required from you in the design. That was the explanation of the second type of book cover design.